What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today we are going to be discussing one of the biggest and most interesting debates within the Destiny community. It's a topic that has been brought up, heck, since before Destiny ever came out, and has reared its head several times throughout Destiny's 3-year lifespan, and has most recently reared its ugly head yet again in full force with the newest patch, Hotfix 2.5.0.2. Now this issue is, should there be a separation between Destiny's PvP and its PvE, and if so, to what degree? Now this topic again got brought up full force. A lot of people are talking and debating this issue now, and I think that is mainly because of the truth nerf that just happened with the most recent patch. Now guys, if you enjoy this content and feel like this is an important discussion to have, please remember to support this video by liking, commenting, and especially sharing. It's a simple thing to do, but it really helps me out. So, what happened in the most recent patch to bring this issue back up? Again, it mainly had to do with the truth nerf. At least that was the most glaringly obvious example of why this is an issue. So, for those of you who don't know, I'll just do a quick rundown of what happened. The Truth exotic rocket launcher, kind of a PvP all-star, but really wasn't seeing a ton of play in PvE. Definitely a decent rocket launcher, people would whip it out every once in a while. It got nerfed pretty substantially. What happened was that Bungie reduced the magazine size of this rocket launcher from 3 to 1. That is a massive nerf. That is a colossal nerf. And it upset a lot of people mainly because, again, this gun was seeing decent play in PvP, but it in no way saw outrageous use in PvE. In fact, it was probably underused in PvE, and yet the gun is still affected in every PvE aspect of Destiny. If you play Strikes, if you play the Archon's Forge, if you play the Raid, it's gonna have one round in a magazine. Now, a lot of people have taken the position of this nerf wasn't even necessary in the first place. If you guys want to hear something funny, the Truth didn't have 3 rounds in the magazine. Bungie actually buffed the Truth and gave it 3 rounds in a magazine in a patch so that it could properly compete with the Gjallarhorn, because everyone was just using the Gjallarhorn. And then they just nerfed it, not down to 2, but all the way down to 1. If you're sitting there and thinking, that doesn't make a lot of sense, that's because it doesn't. But in any event, the main point about all of this, I'd say, is that I don't agree with the truth nerf whatsoever. I'm part of the camp that was like, this just seems unnecessary. Like, it's an exotic rocket launcher. You're giving up your exotic slot. It should feel powerful, for goodness sakes, and it wasn't overpowered. In any event, here's the thing. You could make an argument that Truth was overpowered in PvP. Again, I don't agree with this, but if someone said to me, look, the Truth is just being overused in PvP, it's the clear best choice because legendaries are so good in terms of your primary and your special, everyone's going to use an exotic heavy, and the Truth is just everything you want in a rocket launcher. It pushes out the other rocket launchers in the game. It really makes you not able to use a legendary rocket launcher because the Truth has literally everything you want. Alright, like, that's fair enough, okay? If someone came to you with that argument, you may disagree with them, but you'd say, okay, that's a fair argument, right? That makes sense. I understand why you could have that opinion. However, there is no way you could make any sort of realistic argument to why Truth needed to be nerfed in any fashion for PvE. It just doesn't make sense. Again, the Truth didn't even see a ton of play, except for maybe on specifically Void Burn playlists, people would use the Truth. And it got use, it was decent, but heck, I saw more Dark Drinker swords than I did Truth exotic rocket launchers. And still, it's affected heavily in PvE. Its PvE usefulness has gone down massively. So again, this debate comes up. Was this the right thing to do? And in the future, what should be done? Because the truth nerf is a blatantly obvious and incredibly easy to see example of how PvP and PvE are different, and nerfs and buffs made for one reason, this time PvP reasons, affect PvE in a negative light. Again, the truth is the most recent example of this, but it's happened before. Shotguns being nerfed for PvP reasons when they weren't seeing a ton of play in PvE. The same happened several times for fusion rifles. They were underused in PvE and still got affected by PvP related nerfs. This has happened several times throughout Destiny's history, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop. So a lot of people are asking the question, again, what should be done? Should Bungie put a system in place that will separate these two systems? Should the truth have one round in the magazine in PvP, but then when you use it in a PvE activity, it goes back to 3 rounds in a magazine? A lot of people would say yes to that they want that. However, Bungie has directly responded to this request during a live stream, and they actually said that they don't want this system. That Destiny is built upon the fact that you can level up your character, earn new abilities, get new weapons, and use those weapons and abilities no matter which activity you're doing. You can use that new legendary scout rifle in PvE and also take it into the Crucible. You can find your favorite weapon and use it anywhere you want. And that is definitely an admirable and an understandable position that Bungie is taking. That does make sense. A lot of people, I'm sure, some of you watching this video, would agree that, okay, that makes sense. However, is there a line that needs to be drawn? Should abilities be the same, but maybe weapons can be different? Should most weapons be the same, but maybe exotics can be different for PvE and PvP? Because exotics, I think, are the most blatantly obvious example of things that at one time were very powerful in PvE scenarios, and now so many exotics are an absolute joke in PvE because they were over-nerfed, or their archetype was over-nerfed, or whatever, or accidentally nerfed, in the case of the Red Death, for PvP reasons, yet it has negatively impacted players' PvE experience. Now, I actually have a very interesting history with this topic because I made a video on how this could be a problem months before Destiny ever came out. It was a video called, the one thing that could ruin Destiny, and I made it in direct response to my experience with a game called Defiance. Defiance right now is actually a free-to-play game. It didn't used to be. It's just kind of an MMO looter shooter, a decently fun game, but nothing really to write home about in my opinion. However, I was having a decent amount of fun with that game, and what happened, and why this will all relate to Destiny, is I had put a decent amount of time in that game and actually gotten some decent loot. But one day after a patch, I logged onto my game and the loot I had grinded for, the loot I had worked for, was complete crap. It was kind of a newer studio, and there was a PvP aspect and a PvE aspect of Defiance. And because certain weapons were being overused in PvP, they nerfed the hell out of them for PvE. I didn't care about PvP whatsoever in the Defiance. I never played it. I just didn't like it at all. I just liked it for PvE. But my weapons that I grinded for suddenly became crap. Basically, just because of that issue specifically, I quit the game. I stopped playing. I thought, what's the point of grinding for these weapons if they're suddenly trash? And this actually happened several more times, and my friends were telling me who kept playing that game that, yeah, more and more weapons are just constantly being nerfed. And so it's scary to think that this problem is so obvious that I, and I'm sure others, were warning people, were trying to get the word out before Destiny ever came out. And yet the same mistake happened again and again and again, and this problem is still relevant 3 years in. So what can be done to fix this for Destiny, and in Destiny 2, because this issue will come up again in Destiny 2 if Bungie doesn't change systems. Now, in terms of changing a system, that is definitely possible. Having weapons specifically designed for PvP isn't the worst idea. You could actually go and just earn Crucible weapons. They would be kind of like legendary weapons. They could all be balanced, you know, just with those weapons, just with the perks that spawn on those weapons. And then there could also be a PvE arsenal, which includes most of the exotics and a bunch of other legendary and raid weapons and so on. And that may sound a little crazy. Some people are advocating for that, but I think a lot of you might be going, that sounds a little bit much. But is that really any different than the current system we have in Destiny right now? If you actually think about it, the weapons being used the most in PvP are kind of PvP designated weapons. Previously it was the Clever Dragon, which was an Iron Banner PvP weapon, the Palindrome, the Isoluna. A lot of PvP weapons that spawn from PvP activities are the best in PvP. It kind of has its own system going on there. Why does it have to affect all of the other guns, all of the PvE guns, raid weapons, exotics that don't see any play in PvP, but they're still crap because of PvP? So if you actually think about it, there is already a pretty segmented system of PvP guns and the PvP meta, and then the rest of the PvE guns that do see some play there. Yes, there are some weapons that cross over, but honestly, less than you'd think. However, again, that is a pretty extreme example and a pretty extreme solution. It could definitely be done, but we're looking at Destiny 2 to provide that sort of answer if that answer is provided. A more realistic thing that Bungie can and has already done in some scenarios is that every nerf made for PvP reasons should be offset in PvE. Bungie, again, has already done this somewhat. They have buffed guns specifically in PvE. They have increased gun type damage against PvE opponents. Literally, there have been patches where pulse rifles, for example, are increased by, 15% against minions of the darkness. So, they're offsetting changes made in PvP for PvE. So, we know that is possible. We know Bungie has the ability to do that, to buff weapons specifically in PvE. So, why aren't they doing that more often? If they are to lower the Truth's magazine count from 3 to 1, which neuters it, again, in PvE, why don't they increase the damage? They should have buffed the damage of the Truth in PvE against minions of the darkness. Again, we know they have this ability, they've done it before, by 3 times or 2 times or something substantial to offset this difference. It may not fix the Truth entirely, but it will show, at least show, that Bungie is acknowledging that a lot of us out there don't like PvP and don't play PvP. We like PvE and we want a variety of weapons to utilize in our arsenal, and we especially don't want our arsenal diminishing for reasons that we had nothing to do with, for PvP reasons that have nothing to do with a weapon's usability in PvE. Now, regardless of what is actually done, something needs to be done. Because quite frankly, so many players, and I'm seeing them in the comment section, are totally alienated every time there is a weapons balance patch. These changes, at the very least, need to be offset, and in terms of evolution and for the future of Destiny, separate systems or weapons that only spawn for PvP or PvE and stuff like that needs to seriously be looked at, because the current model of the Destiny loot and weapon system is inherently flawed, and after 3 years this has become abundantly obvious. Now, again, this isn't a hate video. I'm not saying screw you, Bungie. I hope they listen and I hope they can implement some of these changes. We want the best for the Destiny franchise, I'm sure a lot of us do, and sometimes the best thing to do is to change. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please remember to support it by liking and especially sharing this video. Your support means a lot, and again, it really does help me out. Now, if you guys want to see more Destiny content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.